The culture of barbarism grows simultaneously with the culture of civilization, P.D. Ouspensky writes in Esotericism and Modern Thought. But the important point is the fact that the two cannot develop on parallel lines indefinitely. The moment must inevitably arrive when the culture of barbarism arrests the development of civilization and gradually, or possibly very swiftly, completely destroys it. It may be asked why barbarism must inevitably destroy civilization, why civilization cannot destroy barbarism. It is easy to answer this question. First of all, such a thing has never been known to happen in all the history we know. Whereas the opposite phenomenon, that is, the destruction of civilization by barbarism, the victory of barbarism over civilization, has occurred continually and is occurring now. And, as has been mentioned before, we may judge of the fate of a great wave of culture by the fate of the smaller waves of culture of individual races and peoples. The root cause of the evolution of barbarism lies in man himself. In him are innate the principles which promote the growth of barbarism. In order to destroy barbarism, it is necessary to destroy these principles. But we can see that never since the beginning of history, as we know it, has civilization been able to destroy these principles of barbarism in man's soul. And therefore, barbarism always evolves parallel with civilization. Moreover, barbarism usually evolves more quickly than civilization, and in many cases, barbarism stops the development of civilization at the very beginning. It is possible to find many historical examples of the civilization of a nation being arrested by the development of barbarism in that very nation. It is quite possible that in separate cases of small or even fairly large but isolated cultures, civilization temporarily conquered barbarism. But in other cultures existing at the same time, it was barbarism that overcame civilization. And in time, it invaded and overcame the civilization of those separate cultures which in their own countries had overcome barbarism. The second reason for the victory of barbarism over civilization, which can always be seen, lies in the fact that the original forms of civilization cultivated certain forms of barbarism for the protection of their own existence, their own defense, their own isolation, such as the organization of military force and army, the encouragement of military technique and military psychology, the encouragement and legislation of various forms of slavery, the codification of barbarous customs, and so on. These forms of barbarism very soon outgrow civilization. Very soon they begin to see the aim of their own existence in themselves. Their strength lies in the fact that they can exist by themselves without help from outside. Civilization, on the contrary, having come from outside, can only exist and develop by receiving outside help. That is, the help of the esoteric circle. But the evolving forms of barbarism very soon cut off civilization from its source. And then civilization, losing confidence in the reason for its separate existence, begins to serve the developed forms of barbarism in the belief that here lie its aim and destiny. All forms created by civilization undergo a process of change and adapt themselves to the new order of things, that is to say, become subservient to barbarism. Theocratic government is transformed into despotism. Castes, if they have been recognized, become hereditary. Religion, taking the form of church, becomes an instrument in the hands of despotism or hereditary castes. Science, transformed into technique, subserves the aim of destruction and extermination. Art degenerates and becomes a means for keeping the masses on the level of imbecility. This is civilization in the service of barbarism, in the captivity of barbarism. Such a relation between civilization and barbarism can be observed throughout the whole of historical life, but such a relation cannot exist indefinitely. The growth of civilization becomes arrested. Civilization is, as it were, recast in the culture of barbarism. Finally, it must stop altogether. Thereupon, barbarism, without receiving an inflow of strength from civilization, begins to descend to more and more elementary forms, returning gradually to its primitive state until it becomes what it really is and has been during the whole period in which it was disguised in gorgeous trappings borrowed from civilization. Barbarism and civilization can coexist in this mutual relationship, which we observe in our historical life for only a comparatively short period of time. There must come a period when the growth of the technique of destruction will begin to proceed so swiftly that it will destroy the source of its origin, namely civilization. When we examine modern life, we see how small and unimportant a place is occupied in it by the principles of civilization which are not in servitude to barbarism. How small a place, indeed, in the life of the average man is occupied by thought or the quest of truth. But the principles of civilization in falsified forms are already used for the aims of barbarism as a means for subjugating the masses and holding them in subjection, and in these forms they flourish. And it is only these falsified forms which are tolerated in life. Religion, philosophy, science, and art, which are not in immediate servitude to barbarism, are not acknowledged in life, except in feeble, limited forms. Any attempt on their part to grow beyond the very small limits assigned to them is immediately arrested. The interest of everyday humanity in this direction is exceedingly weak and helpless. Man lives in the satisfaction of his appetites, in fears, in struggle, in vanity, in distraction and amusements, in stupid sports, in games of skill and chance, in greed of gain, in sensuality, in dull daily work, in cares and the anxieties of the day, and more than anything else, in obedience, and in the enjoyment of obedience, because there is nothing that the average man likes better than to obey. If he ceases to obey one force, he immediately begins to obey another. He is infinitely remote from anything that is not connected directly with the interests of the day or with the worries of the day, from anything which is a little above the material level of his life. If we do not shut our eyes to all this, we shall realize that we cannot, at the best, call ourselves anything but civilized barbarians. That is, barbarians possessed of a certain degree of culture. The civilization of our time is a pale, sickly growth which can hardly keep itself alive in the darkness of profound barbarism. Technical inventions, improved means of communication, and methods of production, increasing powers in the struggle with nature, all take away from civilization probably more than they give. True civilization exists only in esotericism. It is the inner circle which is in fact the truly civilized portion of humanity. And the members of the inner circle are civilized men living in a country of barbarians among savages.